Shalom, all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem HaRakakadash, the one that said elder apostles, the great millstone that rule well, and Shalom to all the brothers in the work of Syrian truth, pushing his word to the four corners. Yeah, got this article on Newsweek. It's been making the rounds, because, evidently, everyone's aware, that, Russia, Putin ain't really looking to, uh, pull back you know, on that full-scale war. And it's really something that, as time's gone on, it's become more and more evident. So it says, map shows Russia's new secret bases that could strike NATO. And it's interesting as well, because, I'll read a bit into it, because it kind of touches on it. So it says, Russia's built at least 10 secret sites capable of firing long-range drones into NATO territory, according to a new report, following alliance officials' warning that Moscow could launch a limited attack on alliance soil as early as this fall. So, what's it called? The fact is drones as well. It's more or less with, because it's the same thing that happened in what the fuck is it called, in Iran as well. Same thing that happened in with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where drones have really been given that focal point of in warfare now. And then it's kind of, because I remember there was a clip I saw of a Ukrainian drone that was doing a hit on Russia, and it was like just basically going in to like just go, like it was footage of it, making its way towards a petrol station where it was just blowing it to hell, which you consider that becoming warfare. It's these things are getting greasy as hell. And then it really shows as well, because let me read on a bit more actually, because it's all in an article. I'm just kind of jumping the gun. So Moscow could be thinking. So Russia has installed dozens of new launch rails, which troops can use to get fixed-wing drones airborne for missions or attacks at bases along the Russian border with Belarus and Ukraine. British newspaper The Telegraph reported on Sunday. At least 20 of the new launch rails would be able to fire Russia's most sophisticated long-range attack drones, said analysts with intelligence firm DroneSec, which studied satellite imagery. The majority of the send sites, which are described as set up in the remote countryside or built into military bases or airports, were used to attack the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, in recent weeks, according to the newspaper. So yeah, it's they already, that's the thing as well with it's the same thing with Iran, where because they've been in conflict, because even with the Iranians, it's like they've been like back in the base functionally just the Houthis and different groups in and around the Middle East, an extension of them. So they actually get to try out rockets, missiles, drones, defense systems, and whatnot. Like before, America started the war with before America started the war with what do you call it? Bloody hell. With Iran, they'd already been sending drones to Russia for them to use in the Ukraine conflict. So they would have got to iterate and improve on it, and get people trained, with those things, and how they actually are used. Which is why it's like when America went, started the war, went on them, then they immediately had that shit pop. They responded, where, it was America was thinking, oh, they're just gonna come in, blow everything to hell, airstrikes, no fly zone, blow everything to hell. But then, rockets are getting sent everywhere, drones getting sent everywhere, all the surrounding nations are getting hit. Everyone's getting hit. Everyone can hold these hands. Basically, what's happening around there. So, where, as the US was using their Patriot missiles or whatever missile defense systems, and they weren't able to keep up with drones. But that's something that in, Russia, Ukraine, um, and then, the allies in that sphere getting experience, shared experience through that, they're, that's how warfare is developing. And that's, part of the weak saying I am strong. Because but you think like fucking, how the fuck is Iran some what Americans be thinking like, oh, it's just some fucking desert in the Middle East that, with no economy, no nothing, all they got is oil. But lo and behold, they're militarily made the US look stupid. Because why? The spirit's basically shifted, man. Because let's say Russia has repeatedly denied planning to attack NATO territory and dismissed the claims as nonsense. So it says how drone warfare has changed. It says drone warfare has been transformed by nearly 4.5 years of full-scale war in Ukraine, with Kiev and Moscow battling not only for territory, but for an advantage in drone race. And yeah, they basically it's developed over time. It's like how it was when it first started. It's developed further. Because even says Russia is notorious for wielding Iranian-designed Shahed drones against Ukraine, including the domestically produced Russian version dubbed the Garan 2. So yeah, because I remember there was like Iran was sending them drones, and then that was a whole thing. That was like I said years back, and they've iterated to where it says, but Ukrainian intelligence says the Kremlin is pushing to produce jet-powered variants able to hit targets much further away, with Russian industry now able to pump out roughly 3,000 upgraded Garan 4 and Garan 5 attack drones each month, which is kind of crazy because it's like I was saying, it's like the missiles the US is using in the Iran conflict. It was like a million a head or whatever. The amount they were costing them versus dirt cheap drones that are getting produced at an even more insane rate just kind of shows it's like it's a shift in warfare, and it really shows how much of a meat grinder it's really going to be when this World War III kicks off. Because I would say most of these sophisticated drones are made in a plant in Yelabuga in Russia's Tatarstan region, where Moscow has established a drone hub, according to Ukraine's military intelligence. So yeah, it says Russia and Ukraine sources say the Garan 5 can travel about 1,000 kilometers or just over 600 miles if launched from Russia's territory close to Ukraine or Belarus. So yes, it's because they're using it in Ukraine, they can test distance and whatnot, effectiveness, to when I remember it was like, Russia was saying they can strike on London, they can strike on Europe. These things have been refined. The defense systems, because the same with in the Middle East, those defense systems, unless man is sending rockets, sending missiles, sending drones, whatever, really it's with the drones, because reacting to drones, because they're smaller, the conventional missile defense systems don't work, so those drones are doing even more. But yeah, even with the range, when you go to they got the map here. They said like the yellow is where it could hit. So like Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, even like a touch of Sweden, Poland, and Poland's like the main one where they're feeling kind of like, most at risk. So it says this launch site expansion shows how Russia's expanded its ability to launch greater number of drones, while at the same time using technology to make the types of drones used more difficult to intercept. DroneSec CEO Mike Monick said in a statement, drones and missiles have frequently breached NATO airspace since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. I think even some of those are Ukrainian as well. It's kind of crazy. But when at least 20 drones crossed into Poland in September 2025, officials accused Russia of trying to test the alliance's response to an attack. So yeah, that's the thing. It's the same thing with, you would have like Russian fighter jets going into European airspace, NATO airspace, and then seeing, and then someone have to send interceptor fighters to escort them off. Same with submarines, different ships as well, where they'll be maneuvering like that just to kind of see what the response is, because why? The spirit's been put on them, really. That's the bulk of why. That's why. And it's like, even with those technologies being produced, it's bringing all that spirit together, where they're getting ready for that conflict, that conquest, conflict, because it's really about, the Most High basically stirring up everyone to go into that valley of decision, valley of Yahweh Shabbat, the Most High's judgment, where it's going to become a meat blender, and there's going to be immense amount of death and destruction. It says, Ezekiel 38:2, it says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Say of Russia, the chief prince, and say, Thus saith the Most High Power, because I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So yeah, getting turned back. That's why it's basically been that same contention against America, against Esau. That's been the bulk of why Russia's on the scene. Their role is to be that contender. Like it says, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. So yeah, Persia, Iran, that key ally, really, just locking in on them, because when it comes to these drones, Persia's been the spearhead of that. And then even with, it's funny because I remember the Apostles did a video on it like years back in one of the lessons, where one of the drones, it was a US drone, is when Obizi was doing strikes for days in in the Middle East. He was outdoing the amount of strikes that George W. Bush did. One of the drones was found still fully complete, it hadn't been destroyed, hadn't been fallen apart in Iran. And then from there, Iran started to develop their own drone tech as well. You more likely not springboarding off the back of that, especially after seeing how effective it is. And now you've had the shoe's gone on the other foot, where Iran's pushed it to somewhere, and now that's the new, it's through Russia, Ukraine, it's been expanded. That's the new means of how warfare is handled, man. And it's messy. It's basically it's unrestrained. Because as far as to set up a no-flies air superiority, as far as it's traditionally been with missiles, rockets, planes, these things, anti-air capabilities, is different to these drones. These drones are so lightweight and cheap. It's like a jet is going to be millions in that jet. You're basically going to have that made, so it's not easy to take it out. But these drones can be expendable. Man said they're making 3,000 drones in a month. Then they can just be like, just go send them out, blow them up, whatever. So it's it's a different kind of scale, man. And that really shows you how it's it's going to get messy. And then those those articles as well. Didn't even read it to verify, but they were saying that there'd been talk with Trump had been talking about nuclear solution being used. Towards, I believe it was for Iran, maybe Oman or Iran. Um, and that's the thing is why these things are coming up. It's because that's the spirit it's going into, man. That nuclear, that true, immense fire. Because why? These the wars are gonna roll over into that big conflict, man. But then it's just a matter of prophecy. It's that mark that's gonna get pushed out, man. And we can see those things coming together. Because it says what, for every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but it shall be with burning and fuel of what's like Isaiah 9:5. It says, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but it shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Yeah, every bit. It's as far as how the warfare's gone down. It would be in the thick of it, even like World War II, World War One. World War One, you had planes, Spitfires and whatnot, dogfights. Those things become an aspect. Artillery as well, mechanized warfare, and then World War Two really expanded on all those things, where it was a level of destruction was even higher. And now those things have developed to where you could have whole platoons just out there, and then just some geezer with a remote controller and some drones just goes and blows you to high heaven, man. And then really with the fullness of it is them nukes, man. That nuclear fire, that's really what it's going to culminate into. That's how it's going to be its peak. It's going to be them nukes, man. And that's really what most people are not even thinking of as a reality. But then the joke is because of the scale of things, with DJ Trump, with Nero just out there pushing things even further beyond. It's real. People are aware, like, oh, okay, things that you didn't even think were possible are now happening. You got militarized police force that's basically pointing at the American people, where previously people would be up in a getting upset over it. You got people supporting it because they're like, whoa, it's going to get the migrants out. And then those are things that can line up to the mark as well, where they say, okay, well, if it's going to get me my political aim, a goal in X, Y, Z way, then fuck it, I'll hold it. As long as I can get what I want in the end. And then the greatest reason why is because the Lord desires it, man. Yahweh Shem Yahshua Shem HaKadosh desires it. Isaiah 66:15, for behold, the Lord Yahweh will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. So that fire, is going to be the cleansing agent for this system, for all the judgment that needs to take place against Esau. That fire, those missiles, that's really going to be, the tool utilized. Because it says what? For by fire and by his sword will the Lord Yahweh plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord Yahweh shall be many. So yeah, it's going to be a mass amount of death and destruction happening. Because why? These conflicts, these wars, it's all going to culminate in what? That nuclear, nukes flying, man. America being taken out of the way, becoming a smoldering, burning ruin and a smoldering ruin, where no one dwells, and all these different kingdoms, systems, rulerships, everything's going to be brought in subjection. And Esau's got Hollywood doing spell where it's like, if Esau's system falls, it's just going to be like, people are going to go back to being like cave people or whatever. They're just going to, regress and not even be able to build up. No, that's BS. The kingdom's going to, be established, and it's going to be even more abundant in order. Righteousness is going to go out into the world. So, what it's what we're saying now. This is the confusion. This is the disorder. That's really, and those are things that are going to be made plain. That people will realize it is BS, man. But yeah, I'll leave it there, man. Shalom, shalom.